There.
Right. Yeah. Hey, everyone. We're hosting a Tantric Divine Feminine and Divine Masculine retreat. We want to take this opportunity to go more in depth on the subjects that we're going to be talking about at the retreat. Let's start off with some introductions. Well, first off, this is Rachel. I'm Emitt.
But that's totally fine.
Yes. So we're going to be the facilitators for the retreat. Basically, for this retreat, we're going to be talking about Tantra. Tantra uses the masculine and feminine energies, and our retreat will explore the depth of these two energies. A healthy individual balances the feminine and masculine within themselves. We will be making another video on Tantra to explain the significance of that. It's not a sex-based practice, it's a holistic, natural human emotion practice. So let's get right to the question. What brought this Tantra masculine feminine retreat to mind?
It was the first really co-ed retreat I had been on. Being in that kind of co-ed space with healthy masculine energy that really held that space well, alongside other feminine energies that were coming into that space, really felt like there was a lot of healing that was able to happen in that. And for me, on a very personal level, I've had a lot of toxic relationships. I've had abusive relationships. And so I recognized going into that not only was my own personal masculine energy wounded and out of balance, so was my feminine. Because of that, you can't have one in balance and the other out of balance. It doesn't really work that way, in my opinion. But I also, because it was out of balance internally, it was very out of balance in how I related to both masculine and feminine energies. And I'd really worked on the feminine, but I hadn't really had the opportunity to interact with a lot of healthy masculine energy. And for me, being able to be held in that space allowed for some really deep healing when it came to my own personal interactions, both with masculine energy outside of myself and internally. So that was kind of the first time I had that concept of this isn't something I've found anywhere where people are really trying to create retreats around healing these two energies together. I see a lot of women's retreats. I see a lot of, men's retreats, but that kind of co-ed coming together with the intention around it, I hadn't really seen. And I thought that there was potential for a lot of healing in that space. So.
Awesome. And so why is this important?
If either energy is out of balance for us on an internal level, which can happen in a lot of different ways. I think society had this very intense feminist movement, which is a beautiful thing because, women had been suppressed for so long. Naturally, as humans, we tend to swing in very opposite polarized directions, and don't have a very solid grasp of finding balance. And so I think the feminist movement was very important. I also think it's caused some imbalance and some negative repercussions as far as the masculine energy goes. And in history, we've had, a lot of experience with really unhealthy masculine. There's been a lot of war, destruction, suppression, abuse. All of that is very prevalent in our past. And that's kind of what I would see as an unhealthy masculine energy. And so in order to really create any kind of change on any larger scale, it all has to start internal, in my opinion. And so we really have to find that balance of those energies within ourselves, and heal whatever wounds are there that's suppressing that or blocking that ability, before we can interact with others in a healthy way and find that balance, both in, maybe romantic partnership as well as other relationships in general.
Awesome, great answer. And as you say that too, it just makes me think of why did I want to get involved in this at the same time? And for me, I think it's the feminist movement, I think, was a big thing too. And as the kind of guy who wants to be more sensitive, I guess, or more aware of these things, I question myself in this situation, like, how did this happen? Like how am I becoming someone who's doing things wrong just by my gender, just by being who I am?
Mhm.
What is it that I'm not aware of, that I'm not catching, that is important to the females of the world, to the feminine energy? And as I was hearing you talk, where the feminist movement is one of the most masculine things ever when you think about it, because it's literally taking action, which to me is a very masculine thing, where the feminine sits and accepts. But when there's a toxic masculinity, then it doesn't leave room to listen. The toxic masculinity just keeps going. The toxic masculine doesn't think, he just keeps going, he just keeps acting, he doesn't wait, he doesn't plan, he doesn't figure out what his path is. But for him to figure out what his path is, he kind of needs a goal. So, but to come up with goals, you kind of need something else there. But the masculine is the actor. So in this situation, why I think this is important, it's because we need to realize what we're doing as individuals, and because men and women are different in biology, we're gonna have different chemicals and different things acting in us, and we need to be aware of ourselves to know how we act on these energies. Like, how do guys work off of testosterone? Like, how does that drive? How do we use that for positive? How do we use that for good, rather than using it like as just going, as instead of just acting on that testosterone, let's bring in the thought, like let's find ways to use that energy.
Yep.
And this is what I saw in the feminine movement as well, in a little bit, where there's no thinking anymore, and that's a toxic masculinity. There's no bigger picture thinking, there's just that emotion that
Mhm.
drives that toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. And, would identify as masculine. And um, the feminist movement, again, super important. Like, females have been suppressed and abused for so long that something did need to shift so that there was
yeah.
more equality on a human rights level. Where I think it went wrong a little bit is this concept of making men feel bad for being men or telling them they're bad for being masculine, and people who identify as masculine that feel like they don't know what to do. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to interact with the feminine, because now they feel like anything is going to be seen as negative that they do if from a masculine, space. And that doesn't help anyone. In my opinion, it doesn't help in dating, finding love, in relationship, in business. We have to find that balance so we can allow the healthy masculine to be what it's supposed to be, and let the healthy feminine be what it's supposed to be, because in that balance of the two is when you find the best state of being that's going to not only spread healthy love and support, but creativity and creation. And you really have to have both energies bringing what they do to the table to really make any kind of positive change in the world, in my opinion. And then on a more personal level, in relationship, finding that balance between the two and allowing a partner to be what they are that balances you out, instead of both trying to fight for the same kind of energetic space.
yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So at the end of the day, like, and I think that's our goal here, where we're using this terminology to help bring it to a middle where we can actually share and communicate what's going on within ourselves, what needs to be expressed, what space needs to be taken as an individual level. And then it's finding balance in a communication structure that you can use that within ourselves. And
Yep.
I think finding that the masculine and feminine really struck a chord with me, because it's simpler. It's the yin and the yang. It's everyone can see the difference between men and women in a way, in that drive, especially more when you look at history. Now it's a little more confusing, or
Yeah.
there's a little more parameters now to kind of look at. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when you break it down to masculine and feminine energies, I think it makes it a lot simpler for people to understand the concept and to just have conversations about it. Because, man, I can walk up to a 70-year-old woman or a 20-year-old boy, and say, hey, you know what masculine and feminine is, and
Mhm.
they'll have somewhat of a general idea enough to be like, yeah, a man and a woman, you know, like, so at least you can kind of start so anywhere on the scale with this terminology. So
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, it's a really simple way to communicate, like finding those balances, the yin and the yang. And um that's really super important for, again, any kind of change, any kind of shift. We've been out of balance for so long that I'm not even sure people recognize that we're out of balance, and how much of an impact that can have on a personal level as well as on a collective level.
I would just full swing from being in my full masculine, go, 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 like produce, make money, do things,
Mhm.
or like do something for my partner, always doing something for them, you know, always being like, oh, what do they need next? What do they need next? What do they need next? And just always pushing that energy. And then at that point, that can force my partner, or it can force my other situation, the feminine side, to kind of like take a back seat and just be uninvolved. So
Yep.
then the emotional awareness isn't there because I'm not feeling,
Mhm.
because you need to kind of sit in your feminine to just kind of feel and be aware what's going on in your body.
Yep.
So I'm forcing these people into their feelings
Mhm.
just by being in my own masculine all the time. And then the masculine gets frustrated because he's just trying to control and plan and organize things.
Mhm.
When at the end of the day, he just kind of needs to sit back in the with the feminine sometimes and let that kind of heal out, so you can create a plan and a strategy so that you don't get hurt as much whenever you do get into your masculine. It's
Yep.
kind of balancing the strategy of rest and movement, and it's finding that nice balance with a partner as well as with yourself.
Yep. Yeah, and I think for me, like I had a general concept of this, but going to that retreat with you, and there were a couple other really healthy masculine in the group, and
Thank
getting
God they were there.
I don't know, I mean, you could have carried the whole thing yourself, no. But really being able to, honestly, for me, like for the first time, being able to have conversations with these men that I felt safe and comfortable with, that could see me and see my experience and speak on it, and really hold that space, was like a totally different uh thing for me. I'd never really experienced that, and coming back from that retreat, I felt so much healing around all of my past interactions with men, that moving forward, I just felt like I had so much more awareness in this space of what I needed to heal in myself, for my own personal growth, but also in relationship, and finding a partner, what I wanted to look for and what that balance would look like, so that I could find that healthy masculine counterpart to my, feminine. So
With all that said, so we kind of have an idea of what the masculine is. We kind of have an idea of what the feminine is. We have an idea of like what the shadow and the shadow side of these two are. Is that something we went
yeah, so we
over?
can,
Yeah.
for me, I think what the shadow masculine looks like is a lot of what we see in history. It's a lot of war, it's a lot of destruction. Um,
The cool stuff.
yeah, these are the cool, yeah, yeah, right, yeah, that fun stuff that we all watch on TV. But and something I think that's not talked about super often is I think it also can look lazy, or not goal driven, no sense of purpose. All of those pieces I think can also look like what the shadow masculine is. So I think it can be both, or it can be one or the
Yeah,
other.
right. And I can see that laziness in the feminine too, where she doesn't want to create.
Yep.
You know, she doesn't want to be imaginative. She doesn't want to love something.
Mm-hmm.
And that can come from a fear. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the feminine would maybe be a fear of creation, out of fear of her creations being hurt or destroyed.
Yep.
So the shadow feminine will shut everything down, like any ideas, any attempt of connection,
Mm-hmm.
because she'll be scared of having her creation get hurt.
Yep.
So she wants to nurture something, she wants to love something, she wants to create something, but she needs to be strong enough in her masculine to feel that she can be safe in creating that. So, but she may get bitter and cold and then stay in that mode and then never actually nurture herself into her own masculine and protection, that she can go back into this creation space.
Yep.
So this is where it's within the individual that you need to have enough masculine or drive to go out and get education and learn, and education however you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can teach the feminine on how to create safely and responsibly so that she feels confident in her loving, in her nurturing, in her ability to make the world a better place at the end of the day. But it's the masculine, it's the healthy masculine's job to create a safe space for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The unhealthy masculine is making no one feel safe.
Yep.
Is how I would see the shadow side of the masculine.
100%. Yeah. And I like to, and I've shared this with you before, but I like the analogy of the feminine being water and the masculine being fire. In a healthy way, a fire is life-saving. It's warm. It's bringing warmth.
It warms you up. Yeah.
It warms you up. It cooks your food. There's
no life without the sun.
There's no life without the sun or without fire. It's very necessary. When out of control, it's very destructive. It takes out forests, all of that stuff. It can be very, very destructive. And same thing with water. When it's healthy and good, it's flowing. It provides, we need water. Our body is a lot of water. It's nourishing, it's cleansing, it's supporting, it carries us places, all of those aspects. But also when unhealthy, it can be cold and frozen. It can be
that kills life. Yeah.
It can be destructive as well, as we've just seen. So again, finding these balances is really important, because out of balance, both are very destructive. In balance is where we see healthy healing and creation. But we really do need both internally and in the world and how we relate to each other.
Yeah. Men would sit more in their masculine and women would sit more in their feminine, but stuff happened that changed that. And now we have a society that kind of allows us to kind of satisfy both of our urges in a way. So now we're becoming more complete as individuals, as we're learning to more take care of ourselves because of whatever happened in the past, what Rachel mentioned earlier. So now it's really, when we find balance in ourselves, then we can be open and really love anyone and everyone. So you free yourself when you balance yourself in your energies, because then you're not looking at anyone else to kind of give you a healthy expression of masculine or a healthy expression of feminine.
Right.
So now for our relationships to work, because all the sexes are capable of satisfying their own urges and needs at this point, we kind of have to be able to communicate who needs what when now, rather than just falling to the default pattern of what our birth organs were based on the chemicals in our body. So I think it's important to bring this terminology forward so that we can have these conversations.
And I think that actually just like made me think of something that I think is really important. Obviously, we keep talking about the balance of masculine and feminine internally, which is where it all starts. And something I think that is important is in relationship, just because somebody identifies more as feminine and the other identifies more as masculine, doesn't mean that's always the role that they need or will take on. Just for example, when Emitt and I are working together, there's definitely times where I sit more in my masculine and he's a little bit more in his feminine, and vice versa. And it's always finding that balance and allowing it to kind of unfold the way it's going to in a safe space, and knowing that that can be the case. And I feel comfortable stepping into my masculine energy sometimes, because I know Emitt's going to meet me with more of his feminine side, rather than it being a clash of the two. And vice versa. When he's really in his masculine, then I'm like, cool, I can sit in my feminine and let that flow. But it can be a both and a back and forth.
I like sitting in my feminine. So anytime you want that masculine role, you go ahead. I'll just sit back and just, put my white hat on and just let you rock it. So yeah, anytime, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great perspective too. You're right, because I think this is where you need to balance in yourself so you can handle both strengths.
Mhm.
You know, in a way where Rachel has like, not that you have a overly strong masculine, but you've got a good masculine that can be, I'm sure, imposing on some people. But in my case, like I've worked on my feminine enough, so like I feel like I can meet her there, and it's fun because we can really create things from that.
Yep.
So it's been a great co-creation process because we meet each other's kind of masculinity and femininity in ways that that we practiced on our own at the end of the day.
Yep. And that's why, again, I think this retreat is really important, because it really does start with ourselves. If we're over identified in our feminine, then that means when we find a masculine counterpart, he's never going to feel comfortable going into his more feminine side because we can't support him with our masculine. And so again, it really comes down to finding that balance for yourself, so that when you find a partner, you can do that back and forth and play with that, so that you have that balance with each other. And nobody's having to sit in one energy all of the time. Because that's when you start to fall out of balance and find those more toxic pieces. So.
And that's when you create the codependency as well.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Because then you're relying on the other person to satisfy. Yeah.
Yeah. You need that. We need that balance. So if we don't have it within ourselves, we look for it and grab from others. And that is where codependency comes into play, and a lot of other toxic attachment styles. So.
Wow. Beautiful. Couldn't have said that any better. Nice, great perspective. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So I think that's all the questions I've got here for today.
Yep.
But our retreat is November 14th to the 18th in Joshua Tree. I would love to see anyone who's ready to have this conversation with us. We'd love to have you. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Rachel? Or
I don't think so. I'm really excited. I think a great group is already forming, so I'm really excited about that, and then excited to see who joins that, and coming together to kind of have these conversations and do this healing, and allowing that to kind of spread out, and yeah, just seeing what comes of it. So if you guys have any further questions, reach out to either Emitt or I. And also, we're going to be, like we said at the beginning, we're going to be doing a separate video that kind of dives a little bit more into the Tantra space and why we're using that as a platform for this retreat, because I know that there's a lot of misconceptions around what Tantra is. And I want people to have an understanding of what they can expect coming into it. So that'll be a separate video.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing it.
Love it.
Well, with pleasure, everybody. Take care.
Bye, guys.